The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Game Toppers, last-second reunions, shameless plugs, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's The Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board card and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes review Red Rising from Stonemaier Games. Then they take a look back at their review of Azul Summer Pavilion in their Dukes Double Take. And now, The Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Alex.
And you're joining us for episode 249, which we're calling Rank and Tile. Rank and Tile, that name thanks to our good friend Steve O'Rourke, the name father, who made that suggestion over on our Board Game Geek Guild. And Alex, that's kind of a play on rank and file, like Renaissance era troops that are in like rank and file lines, you know? But instead it's rank and tile because we're talking about the class system from Red Rising, which I know everything about, and also the tiles from Azul Summer Pavilion.
We'll talk about theme down in the review section, but I'm surprised you hadn't read it yet.
Well, so here's the thing. I guess it makes just as much sense to talk about now as opposed to later.
Does it? Wait, does it?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Okay.
So let's carry on. It'll make sense a little bit later, still pre-review though.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
great suggestion from Steve O'Rourke. There's a reason that some people call him the name father, not me. I would never stoop to that level to call him that, but whatever. But we do get help naming all of our episodes over on our Board Game Geek Guild, which is guild number 2008. And you should definitely go check that out because every other week where we are getting ready to post an episode, we get help naming the episodes and getting suggestions about, not suggestions, but comments about games that we're going to be talking about in our Dukes on Deck profile. Not a profile. It's been a long day, Alex. It's been a long, long day. We get help over there. So go check that out. We're going to give you our runners up at the end of the episode. Woo!
Yes, indeed. Well, and normally, Sean, this would be where we would talk about personal life and stuff, but it's time for some shameless plugs.
Oh my goodness.
Because it's been a while since we've shamelessly plugged stuff. So, yeah, as folks here at the top of the show and kind of sprinkled in throughout, we have sponsors of the podcast. There have been a few over the years that have kind of rotated in and out, and we have a sponsorship slot available. So if you are a publisher, board game accessory maker, someone in that space, and you love the Dukes of Dice and want to support what we do, and also, I don't know, have our audience hear about what you do, give us a buzz. My email is alex@dukesofdice.com. Feel free to reach out there and let us know if you're interested.
Well, let me just say, I don't think the prerequisite needs to be that they love the Dukes of Dice. I mean, I don't think they need to love us. They just need to like us enough to want to advertise with us. That's all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, fair enough.
What if they're like, I like these guys, or I don't wish them any particular harm, right?
Right.
So,
right.
You know,
so tolerate, if you tolerate the Dukes of Dice, reach out. We have a sponsorship slot available.
Okay, so that's the thing, though. It can't just be toleration, right? I feel like if you only tolerate us, you're not going to want to advertise with us.
No, but you can tolerate us and love the audience, right?
I feel like never mind.
Anyway, alex@dukesofdice.com if you're interested. Also, if you want to just email me, I guess that's a way you could do it too. So there you go. And then another way we get support for the show, if you're not a board game publisher, but just like supporting cool things, we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/dukesofdice. And thank you to all of our existing Patreon patrons. Thank you for supporting the show and making what we do possible. We don't make any money off of the show between hosting fees and paying for copies because we don't solicit review copies at the same level a lot of other folks do. We end up net neutral or negative. So if you want to help support the show, go ahead and do that there. I don't know, Sean, you're the accountant. You know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so here's the thing. We were actually, we were making a little bit more money like towards the end of you living here, after I'd recouped like a bunch of expenses for equipment and things like that back in the early days. And then since you moved to St. Louis, having to buy like duplicate copies of review games has made things a little more expensive, but that's okay. But yeah, definitely go check us out there. I think we haven't mentioned our Patreon a whole lot. Obviously, we mentioned it at the top of the show. Is that a stinger? Is that the right term?
Yeah.
The opening stinger. I don't know. But I think we need to do a little bit of a revamp, and we need to kind of talk about what the different levels mean and what you're entitled to and things like that. But yeah, definitely go check that out. Patreon.com/Dukes of Dice.
Yes, indeed. All right, Sean. Well, I'd ask how you've been doing, but we actually just saw each other not that long ago.
We did. It was super crazy. It was the first time we've seen each other in person in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 6 years.
No, not that. Wait.
A year.
No,
2 years.
It had to be more than a year. So I think it was.
It was SeanCon. It was SeanCon 2019.
Yeah, so it was slightly less than 2 years, because SeanCon 2019 is right around your birthday, which is middle of the year, and we're not quite middle of the year. Yeah, a little less than 2 years, but still a decent chunk of time.
Yeah.
No, so I'll tell you, it was sort of a mix of things. For me, it was I had gotten a vaccine a number of weeks ago now, Johnson & Johnson. No blood clots yet to this point. I did take the trip out and wanted to help my folks. My folks are moving houses in Santa Fe, so did a lot of hauling. My mom does pottery, and boy, oh boy, are kilns heavy. Man, oh man, are those tough to move. Also, found out my dad is a frequent listener of the Dukes of Dice, at least for this section of the podcast. So if you're listening, hi, Dad, love you. What else? No, that was mainly it. It was that and just wanting to travel, and then Abby was perfectly fine having some time where she could just kind of sit and chill and veg on the couch and not have to worry about me. So, yeah, that was the weekend. Most of it was in Santa Fe, enjoying some delicious food. But the very last chunk of it, just about all of Sunday, was down in Albuquerque. And Sean, when I got there, y'all had a pretty elaborate 18XX setup.
Yeah, we sure did. We were playing 18 crap.
46?
No. 1860? Oh, no. 1860, which is the Russian Empire. When I talked about it either last episode or the episode before, this was actually our third play of this in the last 6 weeks.
Wow.
And I think it's kind of more on the intermediate end of 18XX games. But I pulled out the win. Like, this was 1861. 1861. There we go. And I pulled out the win, man. It was bad. Like, early on. So there's this thing where if the minor companies that you are running do not have a train at a certain point, then that company gets nationalized. The Russian government buys it up, and all of the work you put into that company goes away. You get some money back from that nationalization process. The stock goes down a level, and then you get paid for your 2 shares. But it's bad. It's very bad. And so I had set it up in such a way. I had 4 companies, and I had my 2 rich companies that were about to suck up the trains for my other companies. You can do this like insider trading type thing. And I was all set for that because I got a rule wrong. The major companies don't get nationalized right away if they have no trains. They have an opportunity to buy trains, and I screwed that up. And so I was a sourpuss for a good 15 minutes because I'm like, that's it. That's the game. I am out of this game. Like, and we've got like 3 hours left. So, hey, easy there. But yeah, I made some really solid moves, like some really solid strategic moves that pulled me out, and I wound up winning. It was great. Like, it felt good. What did you think? Because had you seen me playing an 18XX game in person before?
Maybe, but I will tell you the setup of this, right? The board itself was more colorful, more vibrant. The graphic design on this game was better than a typical 18xx game. Plus, you had the chip set up. You had it set up on a beautiful game topper. More on game toppers later in this episode. Speaking of sponsorships and all that fun stuff. No, you had a great looking setup for all of that, and it was more visually appealing than I'm used to. What wasn't so appealing was hearing that it only took you 5.5 hours.
We started at 7 a.m. We started at 7 a.m. that morning.
5.5 hours.
Yeah, 5.5 hours.
I know when I got there.
Yeah. No, it was, hey, we like it. And if you like it, great. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying, Alex?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
All right. Well, good.
I'm glad it was your cup of tea. But the beauty of that and the beauty of being at Empire, Sean, was we got to play some games in person after that all wrapped up, including our review game later in this episode, Red Rising. I hand-delivered it to you. It had just arrived at the warehouse in St. Louis. I picked it up from Joe from Stonemaier and then flew it out to you. And so you got a hand delivery from me on that one.
That was great.
Yeah, I know. Super convenient. But we got in some plays of an old classic, Sean, Motainai. For longtime listeners, you will be well familiar with Motainai. This is a game by Asmati Games, done by same designer as Glory to Rome. Chris Cheese.
Carl Chuddick.
Carl Chuddick. Why do I have Chris Cheeselick in my head?
Wow, because he runs Asmati Games.
He runs Asmati. That's why. Okay, I got my wires crossed. Yeah, Carl Chuddick. Sorry, too many C's in the mix. But this is a brilliant one-deck game for folks who don't know, where you're trying to build works from hand while running a monastery and get the most points. You have 5 different types of goods. You have multi-use cards. It has been one of our favorite games in the Duchy. The only game I've ever bought 2 copies of just because I was worried if the thing ever went out of print. I wanted to make sure I had access to it just in case. And Sean, you mentioned you have more than 2.
I have 3. Yeah, I have 3 copies.
Yeah, there you go. So this has been a long time favorite in the Duchy. And it was great because this game is really hard to teach, but once you know it flies. It's super smooth. And so we went head to head, and we ended up playing 4 games of this. We split the series, but there were some interesting finishes in this, Sean. For me, the most interesting one was the very first one, where you played a card that lets you basically fill the floor with cards from the deck until there's both a metal and a stone, but there weren't any more stone in the deck. So in your efforts to stock the floor to kind of set yourself up for success because you were on a roll, you prematurely ended the game and just lost. Yeah,
that was a thing. That was fun.
And then there were a couple that I ended that you ended up winning by a point on back orders. And that's always frustrating, though. I felt in that situation I didn't really have much of a choice because in those games you were also on a roll. And then the other one that I won was a blitz. I just ended the game as quickly as I possibly could with paper because you were set up to roll over me with a big metal and clay engine.
Right. No, it's a brilliant game, and a lot of people don't give it a chance because the rules are so hard to teach, which is a shame. Which is obviously a shame, but it's so good. It really is so good.
Yeah. So good to be reunited on that. I hadn't played that one in a while. I look forward to hopefully playing more of that with folks in person in hopefully the near future. But for now, it was just good to kind of sit down with a buddy and play an old classic, going toe to toe. We ended up playing that one specifically so long. I didn't quite get close to missing my flight because I have TSA pre-check and just walked through security. But we cut it a little closer than certainly Abby would have been comfortable with if she was in person. I showed up to the airport. We got there 55 minutes before my flight left.
Yeah, something like that. It was tight.
Yeah,
but Empire's not that far away from the airport, so it worked out. It was fine.
It worked out fine. Yeah, I was freaking out just a little, mainly because if I'd missed the flight for that reason, I don't think Abby would have been happy at all. So yeah, made it home safely and got in 4 plays of Motainai together. That was super cool.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I played. And we'll talk about the other one in a bit. But first, Sean, you had something else you gave a try these past couple weeks.
Yeah, so I got to play a new CMON game, or I guess a newer CMON game, and it is called Fairy Tale Inn. I knew it was called, but I was just looking up on my phone so I can get the other information. Yes, Fairy Tale Inn, like I said, from CMON, 2 designers. One of them is Paolo More. Paolo More? Is that how you say his name?
Mori, I think.
Palamore Mori, who designed one of, I'd call it a top five. Nope. A top 5 out of 6 game. Tops my 5s. How about that?
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yes.
Libertalia, which is still in the collection.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a great game. But this is designed by both him and also Remo Consadori. And this is a Connect 4 type game because you've got the whole, like the screen, like the Connect 4 screen where you're dropping things in the top and they're stacking up on top of each other. But instead of trying to connect 4 things in a row, you're trying to place tiles in such a way based on how that character scores. And you are running this fairy tale in because you have different fairy tale characters that you're drawing from a tile bag to place. So for example, you have the 3 little pigs. And the 3 little pigs, whenever you drop them, you're going to get a coin for the pig itself, plus every other pig that is contiguous with that one you just dropped. Okay. But what's interesting is each tile is double-sided. On one side, it's colored. On the other side, it's kind of a black and white. And so that's how you know when I drop it, I'm going to face the color side to me. When my opponent drops it, they're going to face the color side to them. So I'm going to see the black and white. And you're only scoring off your own things. You have characters like Little Red Riding Hood, who wants to be next to or orthogonally adjacent to your tiles at the end of the game. You'll score a coin for each one of them. And then I think like Pinocchio is the opposite, where he wants to be next to tiles of your opponents. You have things like the Evil Queen, which don't get you any points, but if your opponent is forced to drop a tile on top of one of your Evil Queens, then they have to pay you a coin, which is pretty interesting. And here's the cool thing. There's a sort of drafting, like a Rochester-style draft, where the tiles are out there in front of you. There are 2 tiles that you have access to that are free. The 3rd tile costs you a coin. The 4th tile costs you 2 coins, but then you always slide them down, so you'll get a full row of them. So you're going to play with 5 different characters in a game. The game comes with 8, so there's a lot of mixing and matching. And I played this with Chewy. We played 2 games back to back, borrowed it from Empire, and I'm like, all right, this isn't really a kid's game. It's certainly a lighter, easier game than some, but it's not purely designed to be a kid's game. And she's at a point now where her reading is solid. Like, she's a really good reader. So she was able to read the cards. We had to kind of walk through what they did. I had to kind of remind her here and there of strategy. But we played 2 solid games. This was really good for me too, because obviously it's a simple game, but there's lots of strategy and tactics that you're dealing with. And of course, I was kind of helping her out to try and make sure she understood. By the second game, her strategy was getting a lot better, like really solid. So much so that we're going to return Empire's copy to the shop. This is the shop copy, and they've got a retail copy, which I've asked Rory to set aside. So I'm going to bring it back because she really liked it and she wants to keep playing it. So
awesome.
Yeah. So that was pretty encouraging. I was pretty excited about that. We've played a ton of kids games over the last year and change, and so this was exciting to see. So
is this her favorite game? Her favorite game that she's played?
I think the most recent game is her favorite game. You know, that's kind of how 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds. By the way, happy birthday, Chewy. Her birthday was 2 days ago. She had her 7th birthday.
Nuts that she's that old.
Yeah, tell me about it. But no, whatever she did last is the thing that she enjoys the most, for the most part.
Well, good deal. Well, I'm excited that you have an addition to the collection that she's super excited about, and curious to hear how that evolves, because she's definitely of that age where I think even more you're gonna keep building up that library. Yeah,
quite possibly. I was trying to think. There was a game. Oh, you know what I think she's ready for? I think she's ready for Small World.
Oh,
which
man.
Is a game I enjoy playing on the app. I don't own it personally. It's not something that Raquel and I would necessarily want to play. So I've never owned it. I've always enjoyed it, and I think it's a good game, but it's never one that I want to own. but I think she's going to really like Small World. So I may bring that home from Empire at some point, and if she does, I may need to pick up a copy because I think she'll dig it. And I think it's going to be pretty solid, but we'll see.
All right. Next up, Sean, a game that was not as well enjoyed by us.
Oh my goodness.
So we were looking for something new to play because I wanted something for us to talk about on the show together. Get a new play of something in and just sitting there, right, for us to see Cosmic Encounter Duel, which I'd heard mixed things about. This is a two-player version of the classic Cosmic Encounter. Good for large groups. It's a game that is unbalanced at its core, but is sort of balanced by the players and then how folks will kind of pick on other folks at the table. This is one that we played all the time in the early days of the Dukes of Dice. And Sean, you had mentioned, retold some stories of times where it had really left a bad taste in your mouth. Cosmic Encounter itself.
Yep. Oh, yeah. No, at one point I owned the base game and I owned like 3 or 4 expansions. I no longer own the game or any of the expansions, but go on.
Yeah. So this is a 2-player implementation of Cosmic Encounter. You each take on an alien race. You still have the kind of clash and conflict cards. And then the rest of the game is just a big jumbled mess of stuff. There are effectively 3 decks that will tell you to either, hey, battle over this planet, or refresh some of your little counters that you'll use to blow up other people's ships, or get some aid in another form, grab some reinforcements from the deck that are unusual cards. It's wild and wacky, and there's a lot of different things going on, and none of it felt like it really meshed together in any sort of satisfying way. I want to kind of go out and explain this one. I'm not sure it's worth doing. Sean, what else would you add in terms of flavor as to how this game plays out? Cosmic Encounter Duel.
Here's what I would say. Yeah. If you like regular Cosmic Encounter, you will like Cosmic Encounter Duel. That's the bottom line. If you've played Cosmic Encounter and you're like, nope, this isn't for me, don't play this. Just don't play this. If you've never played Cosmic Encounter, I think you need to like and enjoy super chaotic stuff. I think that's the only way to describe it.
I'm okay with chaos in a lot of cases, as long as it's clear that it's chaos. Like, I love Tales of Arabian Nights, which is oftentimes just chaos, and you have no control, and you just sort of let your hands off the wheel and let the boat steer where it's going to steer. Right. This is one that sort of has elements of what appears to be strategy, but I don't know. You just kind of throw your hands up at some point, and that was sort of where we got to about midway through this game, was just kind of throwing our hands up a little bit and saying, I don't know, I don't care. And I ended up winning, but I certainly didn't care at the point that I won. And you were ready to play something else at that point. We actually played this in between after 2 games of Matai and went back to Matai after this, and we're much happier for it.
I was ready to play something else by the time that we were halfway through the rules. That's when I was done. No, and I think you're right. Like what you said at the beginning is absolutely correct, that the game is not balanced, but it's balanced by the players, meaning the main game, the full game, meaning that if you have one person that is pulling out ahead in terms of victory points, then the table self-corrects and gangs up on the leader, right? And then there's a new leader, and then you gang up on that person. And that I don't mind so much. I like that. But here, it's one versus one, and there's just none of that. None of that's present here. So I definitely, even though I've soured a bit on Cosmic Encounter, I think it's a better game than Cosmic Encounter Duel.
I would agree with that. I will say this. The components production was quite nice. The little straggler piece, which is a cat just kind of spinning around, I thought that piece was very cool. So if you like nice components, this game has that in spades. But I don't know. Wasn't for me. Wasn't for you.
Yo, definitely not.
Yeah. Yep. So that's Cosmic Encounter Duel. Sorry that wasn't as thorough of a recap, maybe, but about as good as we got. But good to be back at Empire. Good to see folks I hadn't seen in a while, and game with a few. And we'll talk about another one of those gaming experiences here momentarily after a word from our sponsor.
So, Alex, They say that the third time's the charm, but that implies that there were problems with the first and second time, right?
I mean, it might be the most charming.
Well, so we have Game Toppers 3.0 going on Kickstarter, but Alex, there was nothing wrong with 1.0 or 2.0, right? I mean, these are all
absolutely not. No,
so,
but it could be even more charming the third time, like I said.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Game Toppers is currently back on Kickstarter. We're talking all this time for months and months about late pledges, and you could still blah, blah, blah. No, it's on Kickstarter. Go to Kickstarter.com, look up Game Toppers 3.0, and you'll find it, and you'll be like, oh, look at these sweet gaming tables that are modular and that add to my gaming experience without taking up a whole bunch of space in my house so I can have a regular table. But there's some new stuff as well, Alex, with this 3.0 Game Toppers Kickstarter, is there not?
Oh yeah, quite a few things. In fact, for the longest time, Game Toppers, which had, as the name implies, topped your table, right? You have a table, you put this on top of it. Now you can have the Game Toppers as a table in and of itself with the Game Toppers leg kit. It's an additional leg kit. You can get it with a center support or just standard as an add-on, and it basically converts your Game Topper into a full table. Pretty sweet. There's also now a Game Toppers dining cover, so you can take your Game Topper and make it something you can eat on top of without messing up your game, and store your game underneath if it's short enough. There's also the collapsible cup trays, which we actually used when we were in Albuquerque at Empire. Empire has these, and they're super cool. They can either kind of sit up top and have the drink right up there, or if it's a bottle or a deeper cup, you can press them down and they sink right in. Super cool.
What's that sound effect again, Alex?
Thunk.
That wasn't the first sound effect. You changed the
I
sound
don't know.
effect.
I don't remember.
It was like a woof.
Woof. Thunk. I mean, it doesn't fall on the ground, so if that's the implication there,
But it's this nice little rubber thing and just goes.
Anyway, check out Game Toppers there. And if you're so inclined, if you go to the Game Toppers LLC website, they have a huge giveaway, a limited edition Watson Topper with a whole bunch of stuff. $2,200 total package. Comes with a DM screen, dice sheath, game mats, all sorts of awesome stuff. Check that out. It's free to enter. There's 6 different ways you can do it. That is currently live and runs through the end of the year. So check out that giveaway online. And if you don't want to be patient and wait, hey, jump on the Game Toppers 3.0 Kickstarter running through May 20th, 2021. If you want a showstopper, best get a Game Topper. Stonemaier Games has come full circle. Started out with a dystopian game set in the future. Then it went to an alternate version of the past, vineyards, all sorts of different places in between. But now we are back. We're back to a game about a dystopian future based on a game that has a romanticized fantasy version of a past. We're talking about Red Rising. Is this one that is going to succeed, rise to the top, and be a gold of a game? Or is it going to be working in the mines as a lowly red? We'll tell you.
All right, so let's talk about Red Rising. And folks, I got to tell you, what you heard there was the best intro Alex was able to do. I just listened to about 7, and we're going with that was the best. So
yeah. I mean, look, I gave it my all, Sean, and sometimes I have it, and sometimes I just don't. Like today, and for this show in general, Sean, I feel like I have a ton of energy. I don't feel like I have a good, brain for talking about games in a coherent way, which is usually a good requirement for this show. So I'm hoping the energy's enough, but yeah, a little bit rough on the intro, not gonna lie.
Okay, so Red Rising from Stonemaier Games, designed by Jamie Stegmaier and Alexander Schmidt, with art by Jackie Davis, Miles Bensky, and Justin Wong. This is based on the novels Red Rising, that series by Pierce Brown. Wow, I struggle with the name Brown. Enter the futuristic universe of Red Rising based on the book series, featuring a dystopian society divided into 14 castes. You represent a house attempting to rise to power as you piece together an assortment of followers. Will you break the chains of the society or embrace the dominance of the golds? Yeah, so Alex, this is a card game. You have a pretty hefty stack of cards that have different individuals that represent different jobs, some of them different characters. And they're all one of these 14 different casts, these different colors. There's yellow and gold and orange and pink and obsidian and so on and so forth. And your turn is pretty simple. You're simply going to either be placing a card and picking up a card from a central tableau, or you might be revealing a card from the deck and placing it. That's called the scouting action. Now, essentially what you're trying to do is score the most points, and you're going to do that. There are several tracks. I use tracks in quotes because one of them's a track. One of them is a collection of resources. Another of them is you putting things of yours out, influence, where it's kind of a majority control thing at the end of the game. And based on how well you're able to do that, will determine how many points you get at the end of the game. But you're also going to score points for the cards that you have kept in your hand. They all have a point amount in the upper left-hand corner. But then there's also some bonus scoring for the cards that's depicted in the bottom of each. And it's going to depend on you having certain colors with that card or certain named characters with that card or a bunch of other factors. I mean, there is a ton of cards here. All right. So let's talk about what that turn looks like. I talked about the two actions. That first one is called leading. This is where you take a card from your hand and you deploy it to one of the 4 spots on the game board. There's Jupiter, Mars, Luna, and the Institute. And when you deploy a card, there's usually some sort of deployability. It might say get a resource. It might say move up on the fleet track. It might tell you to move some other cards around on the board. Lots of different things. Once you place a card, you're then able to take a card from one of the other 3 locations. That card's going to go into your hand that you're going to be able to use in a subsequent turn or possibly use for endgame scoring. But what's important also is that wherever you remove that card from, you're going to get some sort of benefit. So if I take a card from Jupiter, I'm going to advance on the fleet track. That's one of those tracks I talked about. It's really the only track technically. But basically, there's a kind of geometric scoring that happens as you advance along the fleet track. If I take a card from Mars, I'll get a helium token, which are worth 3 points per at the end of the game. The third place you could pull from is Luna. When you pull from Luna, you're going to get this little sovereignty counter. And based on which house you are, because there are these asymmetric powers based on these houses, you're going to get to do whatever the asymmetric power is that you have. Plus, if you end the game with the sovereignty token, it's going to be worth a bonus 10 points. And then the final location on the board is the Institute, where you're going to take one of your influence cubes. You all have your own different colored influence cubes. You place it on the Institute area on the game board. And then you're going to score a certain number of points per cube, but you get more points per cube if you have the most. You get more than second or third. Second gets more than third. Third gets more than any others. And of course, you have to have something there to get something there. So there's that. Now, that's the first of the 2 actions. That's the lead action. Then there's the scout action, where you're basically just trying to kind of help seed the board. You draw a card from the top of the deck. You then place it on one of those locations because maybe you don't want to place a card out. You like your hand the way it is. And so you're able to do that, and then you get the bonus for whatever location that it goes to. And that's really it. This is one of those games where there's a ton of cards with a ton of different powers. The main rules are simple. The main rules are pretty straightforward, but it's this interplay of how do all of these cards combo together? Are you building an engine? Are you building towards a certain end game scoring? Lots of different things. And it's kind of hard to kind of get that across in a rules overview when, again, that framework is pretty simple and straightforward. So that is, I didn't say how you end the game. You end the game either when one player has quasi-maxed out on 2 of those 3 conditions. Either you've gotten 7 helium, you've reached 7 levels on the fleet track, or you have 7 cubes in the influence, or if 3 people have done any one of those things. That's what's going to trigger the end game. Everyone gets basically complete the round, and you then add up all the points, get the points from cards in hand, bonus points from the cards as well, and whoever has the most points is the winner of Red Rising, and they have successfully managed to take their house into the upper echelons of Martian society. Is that right? Is that right?
I think so. I don't know exactly thematically. It's probably in the rule book, but I never was explained to me in that thematic sense. It might be in there though. You have the rule book handy?
Yeah. Will you break the chains of the society or embrace the dominance of the golds?
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. I don't know. You read the books?
I did read the book. There are houses, and I guess those houses can sometimes be sympathetic to reds. They are oftentimes just filled to the brim with golds. But I don't want to give away any spoilers for the book, so I'll be cautious about how I discuss this. I don't know. It's not really important. Hey, Sean, let's talk about other stuff.
Okay.
Instead of expectations, I feel like right up front should be a ginormous disclaimer. Because in the recent past, how we've handled Stonemaier games has varied. For folks new to the show or folks who just want to recap, this serves as a big disclaimer. Here's the disclaimer. I really, really like Stonemaier games in general. I consider Jamie himself a friend. I consider Joe, who works for Stonemaier, a friend. I consider Alex, who works for Stonemaier and co-designed this game, a friend. They're a St. Louis-based company. I think they do good stuff. I've been a fan of them even before knowing them. Sean, we both loved Viticulture and Scythe specifically, and I've enjoyed games since. There have been times where I've kind of taken myself out. My background as a journalist tells me, hey, watch out for conflicts of interest. In normal cases, if we'd had maybe more lead time in a review, you might have found someone else to review this with, but circumstances didn't really allow for that in this case. So, yeah. Here we are. I am going to jump in with my thoughts, but know that going in that I probably have some amount of personal bias towards Stonemaier for a lot of reasons. I will talk about some things I don't like about this game and a lot of things I do like about this game. Not going to spoil any parts of the review now, but yeah, big disclaimer up front. Take that for what you will. Take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. And also, additional disclaimer, this is a review copy we're talking about, and specifically, Sean, the collector's edition of the game.
Yes, indeed. So I'm obviously also very biased because I got paid off with a deluxe review copy.
That's right, a very nice copy. So, yeah, yep. All right, what were your expectations for this one going in, Sean?
I had almost no expectations, Alex. I was completely unfamiliar with the books. I'd never heard of them before. You know, at least if it's something that I know is out there that I have some passing familiarity with through pop culture or whatever, that's one thing, but I knew nothing about this. And I'm trying to remember, I don't know that there was a lot of lead time with this game being advanced, right? Or being announced, rather.
There never is. I mean, the way that Jamie likes to do things, there's usually not. He'll kind of have things in code names in the newsletter. Mm-hmm. I happen to know a little bit more about this game sooner, just because during my brief Stonemaier audition, I play tested this one when it was in that form. So I was familiar with it, and as a result of that, had read the books, and so I became familiar with the IP through that. I knew about the game ahead of time, but I had been told prior to playing the game that it was based off of, and I think this is worth saying up front, this has certainly been acknowledged, it's not a secret, but based off of and inspired by Fantasy Realms, a 2017 title done by designer Bruce Glasgow, released by WizKids 4 years ago. Sean, when you mentioned you hadn't played Fantasy Realms, I was shocked, and then I remembered, this is one that I discovered when I've, since coming to St. Louis, and have really enjoyed. It's one that would come out pretty frequently at game nights. So, yeah, for folks who don't know, Fantasy Realms hand management game, draw one, play one. We can talk about some of the differences later on, but yeah, effectively my expectations were, this is interesting, a cool dystopian theme, and a hand management game that it's all kind of based around. I was intrigued, to say the least. So,
yeah, all right. Well, I have really not much to say about the rulebook because you taught me the game, Alex.
Yeah. Did you have to look up anything though?
No, I don't. I'm trying to think. I don't think so. I pretty much taught Raquel from memory. I will say that when I taught her, and maybe this was kind of the problem of not reading the rule book, I didn't use any specific, other than helium. Well, no, helium, fleet track, influence, things like that. But I completely forgot the name of the sovereignty marker, for example. I'm like, here's sure. the gold thingy. But no, I didn't. Yeah, I taught it completely from memory. So that's probably a good sign, right?
I would say that is a good sign. I at no point have learned this game from the rulebook. I've referenced it to kind of remember, okay, here's how you set it up, here's what you put out at the beginning of the game, those sorts of things. I didn't run into any issues, certainly with any of that. It's pretty well laid out, but also at its core, and this is, I think, to the game's credit, it is a fairly straightforward game at its core, at the heart of it, at the center of things. So, not a ton to say on rulebook here, Sean. It's certainly of a good quality. It worked for when I needed it to work, but I didn't learn the game straight from it, so hard to speak fully in that way.
Sure. All right, so I guess art and components. And we're looking. So, have you seen the non-deluxe version, Alex? Have you played with the non-deluxe
I have seen the non-deluxe version, so I have some familiarity with the differences. Effectively, in the deluxe version we were playing with, there were foil gold cards. The golds are the most common cards in the entire deck, and whoo boy, do those look good on foil.
Oh, yeah.
Man, oh man, are those good cards. You also have, in the deluxe edition, instead of the metal cubes, you have plastic cubes for the influence markers on the tracks. I think you have plastic bits instead of metal for the player markers, first player markers. And I feel like if I want to go into any more specifics, I probably should look this product up online. But effectively, it's component upgrades. It's not gameplay upgrades, to my recollection. I'll look that up as we're talking about this, and if that's different than what's true, we'll jump in and save ourselves. But no, we were playing with some upgraded components, so keep that in mind. I believe the pre-orders, you can still pre-order the collector's edition online, but the retail one will be available as well. I don't know. Give me a second, Sean. You talk for a little bit. What else did you think about components here?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously the collector's edition is very nice. The card quality is solid. The gold foil on some of the gold cards is really nice, like really sharp. Definitely really cool. There's not a lot to this game in terms of the number of components. There's kind of a small to medium size main board that goes in the center, but really it's about this stack of cards. And it looks like there's room to sleeve the cards and still have them fit within the insert, which is always nice when that's thought of. What was it? Oh, Monumental, a game that Raquel and I loved. I sleeved up all the cards because I'm like, this is a great game. We're going to play this a ton. And now it doesn't fit in the box. And I'm like, are you kidding me? At the time in 2020, like, you're not planning your inserts. Anyway, so good job, Jamie, for making sure that sleeve cards will fit in here. So that's the first thing that I noticed, because that always bugs me. But yeah, I mean, I think the components are solid. There's kind of a slight issue, which we'll talk about here in a second. The art was okay. It wasn't. I think the graphic design is solid. Graphic design is very solid. And iconography is pretty straightforward, not really much of an issue. I wasn't super crazy about the actual art of the cards necessarily. That just may be a personal preference, but I don't think it was bad by any stretch. It just wasn't necessarily my favorite. But those are kind of my initial thoughts. But like I said, I'm sure there's kind of a complaint that we'll both have here in a second.
Yeah. So, and just to clarify, there are some upgrades in the insert in the collector's edition. The box itself has some upgrades. There are card holders that come in the collector's edition that don't come in retail. Basically, the plastic bits, for the most part, get upgraded to metal, and we talked about the foil on the cards. That's pretty much it. Those are the main differences. Nothing in terms of the cards themselves. So, yeah, I will say this. The components, the insert, all of that, top-notch, a really great production, and not a surprise that is pretty typical of a Stonemaier game.
Yeah.
I liked that they didn't go with the sandpaper finish that you saw in games like Pendulum and Tapestry. Tapestry, I think it worked a little bit better. Pendulum, I was pretty well sick of it. I get what they were trying to do, but as someone who really loved the multi-layered player boards and something like Scythe and like those whenever they come up, I certainly felt like this was a return to form in that sense. I like the production of this game even better than some of the other recent ones, except for in one specific area. And Sean, the one specific area is one we will both call out because we both saw it immediately.
Oh yeah,
it's this. And anytime a component issue affects function, you're gonna have questions. So a lot of this game is playing cards down into a row, choosing another card to pick up, and trying to see what those cards are. The trick is there's information that's key. Some of that's information that's on the top of the card. Some of that is information on the bottom. So the bottom being, say, deploy effects, which might be beneficial in some situations and not others for you as a player. Some of them being types of cards themselves. So is it a gold? Is it a yellow? Is it an obsidian? Is it a gray? And some of them being names of characters, because specific names of characters are things you will look for some of these combos as you go. So the way the board is set up and how it's arranged, there isn't a clean, easy way of seeing all that information at once. And it's a tough task. It's a really tough task because you have that information in so many places. As the cards stack on top of each other, though, it's hard to kind of read that as you go. So it's tough. It's a tough thing because it does get a little in the way of the play of the game, just in terms of, hey, I want all this information. I want to know what card I might be trying to dig for, move, and that information isn't at ready access. They've done some things in terms of the cards themselves, like including, hey, this card doesn't want to be with an obsidian but wants to be with a red. It will display that information along the left-hand side of the card. That part's really nice, but the visibility on the cards themselves is an annoyance and something that we both picked up on pretty quick.
So let me describe the layout of the card. And it's interesting because I'll see this in like different board game groups all the time where someone's like, hey, I'm designing a game and here are 3 different layouts I have. Which you guys like better? I always find that interesting because there are certain, having played a ton of different card games, it's very clear what works and what doesn't in a lot of ways. And if this is a game where you just have cards splayed in your hand, that's fine. That's all well and good. I think these cards are fine for that. But to have them all out and be able to see them, I think is important. And so either you need a bigger board where you can lay out all of the cards in a given column and see them. Because here's the kind of the bad thing sometimes is you don't necessarily want to show people what you're looking at, right?
Right. Yep.
Because then you're like, oh, what's he looking at? Oh, I better, check up on that. So here's what the cards look like, or here's their layout. In the upper left-hand corner, so you have a band at the top, and this is probably the top 1/8 of the card. You have a victory point in the upper left-hand corner, and then you have the name of the card. Then I would say the next 6/8 of a card, or was that 3/4? I'll keep it 1/8. So the next 6/8 of the card is the card art. And then you have a band below that, and that's the 7/8, where it talks about the deploy effect. And then you have a band below that, which is the last 1/8, where it talks about the endgame scoring. And then you've got, I'd say, a 5th or a 6th band column on the left, which might give you reminders of what cards, what colors of cards, or what types of cards this interacts with. And so when you're splaying these in a column, you are either only leaving the bottom information revealed or the top information revealed, and you need all of that information. So there are different ways you can do this. None of them are great. So for example, you could have it where maybe it's the name of maybe all of the information is on the bottom of the card or on the top of the card, right? And then you have the art either wholly on the bottom or wholly on the top. And I think that looks weird. I think we're so accustomed to seeing Magic cards, and the layout of Magic cards have been replicated in countless other games, that just looks weird to us. I think we would just look at that and be like, well, that's weird. But it would really serve the function of the game here.
Yeah. I don't know. Because style-wise, I like the look of the cards as a whole.
Yes.
I like how they're laid out. I like how you have good information along that sidebar. I know you didn't like the art. I actually did like the art. As someone who had read the books, it was kind of cool seeing those characters visualized, and I thought the style and...
Oh, I'm sure.
I don't know. It appealed to me well enough. But regardless of that, I think the layout and the crisp look of that, awesome. There's another color issue that comes up in this game, and I think there's two of them for me. One of them is one that I think they had control over. The other one, not so much. The one that I think they had control over were the cubes themselves. So you have different player cubes, and this game plays up to 6. Several of those player cubes look similar next to each other. You have sort of a copper and a gold. And those colors, especially in the Institute, when you're trying to compare influence totals, that kind of blends together a little bit more than you'd want. You can avoid it because you can pick colors that just don't, conflict with each other, though I believe the colors are also associated with different families. They don't have to be, but I think the colors may be paired in the game. I could be wrong on that. That's one piece of this. The one that they had less control over is you have obsidian and gray, and you have yellow and you have gold, which are inherently very similar colors. Because this is based off of an IP, and those are actual casts or groups within that world, you don't get to make up a teal or an aquamarine or some other color that might be even more distinct.
Right.
So I don't think they had much control over that, but there were times when folks would get confused. Yeah, I played this because I thought there were golds here and I'd get a bunch of helium. No, those are yellows. It doesn't work quite that way. So, yeah, I would say overall, the presentation of this, the components, the art, I really loved, but there were some things in terms of functionality that were left, that felt a little lacking in the execution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gameplay. And as we mentioned, this is a take on Fantasy Realms. Fantasy Realms is a little bit different in that you draw a card, play a card. This one, you're playing a card, drawing a card. Most turns, not all turns. This one also adds location bases and things like that. But this is in terms of complexity, on the simpler end as far as a Stonemaier game would go, generally speaking. In fact, let me look up. Let me just take a quick peek at the weight on this. Sean, what would you guess a weight rating for this game?
I would say this is a 1.8? 2.2.
So Fantasy Realms itself was 1.73.
Okay.
And this is a good amount more than that. It's a 2.34.
Okay.
So not terribly far off. I don't know where that ranks as a whole as far as Stonemaier, but this is certainly far simpler than a scythe, than a tapestry, than a pendulum, than a viticulture. Not that it doesn't have meat on it, but I thought, Sean, going into this, you would not find this game interesting or complex enough.
Really? That's so weird.
I don't know. You tend to like heftier stuff and midweight stuff, which this is close-ish to midweight, doesn't always fit the bill. But as you pointed out, this is a combo-y card game.
Yeah. What is wrong with you, man? What?
Look, I get it now. You love combo-y card games. It's
yes.
true.
Jeez. That's so weird. Like, okay. All right. Whatever. That's good. You know nothing about me, Alex. That's fine.
I know some things about you.
Well, not enough. Not important things, I guess.
Fair enough. No. So how did you like the gameplay of this one?
No, I think it's really solid. There is a ton here more I want to explore. So let me give you my quarantine caveats. Plays up to 6. Did not play it with 6. Did not play it with 5. Did not play it with 4. We played 2 games of 3, and then I've played 2 games of 2 with Raquel. I will tell you, I told you that I didn't think Raquel would be crazy about this game, and I was correct. And there's a lot of card games that she doesn't enjoy a lot because and it's kind of things you mentioned with Abby too, where once one player has become more accustomed to know the different interactions, kind of prepare for them, know what's in the pool, that can be a little frustrating to her. And so I kind of had a feeling, and I was right. I think it's really solid. Like, there's a lot of different ways to play this game, a lot of different strategies. All of the different casts, all of the different colors have these little unique things that they do, which either some element of gameplay in the middle of the game or some element of scoring. And I think there are some thematic connections here just based on kind of my rough understanding of its futuristic Martian caste society, in a as generic sense as possible, that I, just again, not knowing the books. No, I really enjoyed my plays of this. I think it's really solid. And I'm a little bummed that I'm not really going to be able to play this with Raquel.
Yeah, that's a shame. Do you think Mariah might like it better?
I think she might, but I don't think she'd be crazy about it though.
Yeah. Okay. For me, Sean, I like this balancing act that you get in this game of there are things you can do to earn points that are of value, right? 40 points is nothing to sneeze at. If you max out the fleet track, there's that. You want to deny points influence. Well, you can't really deny them, but you want to beat them in influence. Mm-hmm. You want to scoop up helium in some cases. But at the core of this, your best bet is to build the best possible hand. That best possible hand can be made in so many different ways. Our last game of this, Sean, mine was a very heavy fleet track hand that gave me bonuses for being well ahead on the fleet track, but it required me thinning out cards and taking some turns that were not as efficient or effective because I'd have to give up a card that didn't really fit in my hand, but made, you getting more cards easier because you had a ton of helium and you were incentivized to pick up that card and play it. But it just wasn't valuable to what I was trying to build and what I was trying to do. So that balancing act is fun. Trying to kind of manipulate the board and change things around and set yourself up is nice. It does feel like you can set yourself up for some really satisfying combos. And there are a lot of different flavors of those combos. So our first game together, Sean, I built up a really powerful red hand, low value cards that amounted to big points when compared together. And finding those synergies is super satisfying.
Yeah, I think that's what this game is about. It's about the combos, about the synergies. And I like it too because you get your starter hand, right? And from that, you're either like, oh man, what am I gonna what mess? I've got this mess. What am I gonna make out of this? What's on the board? Is there something I can even start leaning into? Or am I just gonna have to do, the best with what I've got? You're like, oh, I really want to go this route because I think I've got a good start, but then those particular cards, because think about it, there are 14 different casts, right? So you're, at least in a 2-3 player game, are you even going through a third of the deck?
Probably a third. It depends on the player count, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. In a 2 or 3 player game, are you going through a third of the deck?
Again, it depends on the game because some games you're going heavy off the top. Some games you are banishing a lot of cards and it's fairly thin out there, or people are kind of playing with the cards that already exist out on the board. There's nothing that says you have to draw from the deck a bunch, and you can have different games that feel very different. Like our first game, Sean, the board was empty most of the game. It was just all sorts of crazy banish effects going on. And our second game, it was plentiful. There was plenty of cards in each location.
Right. And it's interesting too, because so that first game I had a card that was going to give me points into the game if there were, I think 10 or more banished cards, and banish is just removing a card from play, right? It's no longer on the board. It's not in someone's hand. It's just banish. And once it's banished, it's pretty much effectively gone for good. Although there are a couple cards that interact with banished cards and can possibly bring them back. So yeah, I mean, and I'm trying to think here. I don't think it really gives you a good idea in the rule book what the different tasks do. I think you just have to kind of experience that through the cards. That would be something kind of nice. I mean, because there's a lot of, looking at this rule book, there's a lot of dead space. It's one of those 12 by 12 rule books, which you know how much I love. And there's plenty of room. I mean, it's not busting off the pages by any means. And so maybe a very brief strategy guide. Here's what the orange cards tend to do. Here's what the obsidian cards tend to do. Here are things, here are little combos. There's also was there like a glossary of cards or an index of cards? I don't think so.
Not that I recall.
No. Yeah, I'm just double checking. And for the most part, I don't think it was needed. The cards are pretty self-explanatory. There's definitely a fair number of games where it's like, okay, I definitely need an 8-page glossary to explain all the cards because they're keeping it minimal. No, all the information that you need is on the cards there. So that's nice. But I think a little bit of, here's what the red cards tend to do. Here's what the green cards tend to do. Because when I first sat down, I was figuring that out on the fly. And that's fine. It's a quick enough game, right? It's a 30-minute game, maybe 45 minutes, but probably closer to 30. And so it's not a huge time investment to figure out what the cards do, but I don't think it would have been terrible to give a little bit of guidance for first time players. And I know Raquel felt overwhelmed, and I felt like when I played with her, I didn't know the game well enough to kind of give her that little, well, here's what you want to look for, here are what the cards do. I don't even know that I would now necessarily.
I think having read the book series, and we'll get to theme, but I think having read the book series helps with that. You know, if you've read the books, reds tend to be the lowliest on the social ladder. They're going to be low value cards, but banded together, they can turn into big points. And in fact, if you just take the red cards and make those into a hand, that's a real good hand. Yeah. So, and blue cards, you know, blues in the book series are pilots, and sure enough, they operate off of the fleet track. Goals themselves have their own complicated, strange backstories and tend to be singular and well-known by name, and sure enough, that's how they play out here. So I totally get how that could be frustrating to someone who doesn't know the theme of this at all. And I think if you were to just read the rule book, you wouldn't necessarily get a full sense of this world. There are some things that hint at it and spell it out a little bit, but not as much. I think you can enjoy and play this game without knowing or engaging in the theme, but I could see how someone new to this world would be overwhelmed by the different colors and how they all come together.
Well, and like the other thing too, this just looking at that big deck, right? There are certain cards that are going to score more points if they're with a certain named character.
Right.
And it's also kind of interesting. There's ones that are say like, you're going to score this many points if you're with this person, but then it's going to lose you points if you're also with this person. And I'm like, I really wish I knew what was behind that story, because that sounds interesting, right? There's some thematic connection there. And I think that's cool. But like in that first game, I think I had 2 cards that were like, be with this named character. And I looked at the board. I'm like, well, they're not there. And I'm looking at this huge stack. I'm like, well, shoot, I don't think we're going through that many cards. So there's no way. And then I got rid of one, and then I got rid of the second one. And as soon as I got rid of the second one, I got a card that said, this can count as any character for endgame scoring purposes.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I didn't realize those existed.
Yeah. Sean, I've played this maybe 5-6 times. I'm not sure I've seen every card.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm not sure I've seen every possible effect in this game just from normal play.
Yeah. No, I doubt it. I seriously doubt it after that many plays, that few plays.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think what's nice about that is it lends itself to discovery. Games themselves will feel fresh and different and in some ways memorable, which I think is key. I had a game of this at 4 players where I had an ability to dig out a whole bunch of banished cards, and I had something like a 12, 13 card hand. The game punishes you for having too many cards, but more just kind of holds you back a bit. Doesn't really, if you have 12 or 13 cards, you're still probably going to do better than if you had 7. But I got to dig out a whole bunch of cards from the graveyard at the end, and that felt super satisfying and memorable. And I tend to like that in games. So another element of this that I really liked. Theme. So going back to kind of the broad topic, does the theme contribute to the game, and does the game feel thematic? I can speak to as someone who has read the book series. I think the game does feel thematic, just in the character interactions, the stories that are told there. That these, again, the Reds like to band together. They want to be around other Reds in a lot of cases. Or these certain named characters are lovers, and so hence they do well with each other. But if these two who really don't like each other together, they're going to cancel each other out. Again, the thematicness in the cards doing what they would do in the book, in a sense. I think the ties are really well made, and if you love the book series, I think this is a must-own in a sense, just because you're going to really feel the theme, and you're going to see these characters that you've read about depicted in a really vibrant, cool way that if I were to go back and read the book series now, I think it would be cool to have those images in my head now. Yeah, that's from the perspective of someone who's read it. I think it works in here, and I think it does contribute to the game itself.
Yeah, so having not read the books, what I think helped was not just the cast colors, but about halfway through the second game, I started picking up on what the description of the cast is. And that's where things kind of clicked thematically for me. So the purple cards are artists. Is that right? Or are there different types of artists within purple?
Yeah, if I'm remembering correctly, those are kind of carvers or people who adjust and amend people's bodies based on different designs, effectively.
Okay, hold on. I'm digging deep with the cards here. All right. I'm back. So let's see. We got some red cards here. Oh my God, these are going in different directions. This is driving me crazy. All the reds they appear to be laborers, at least.
Yeah, they're miners generally.
Okay. Silver. This says financier. Are there other silver? Yes, financier. Yes.
Yeah, they tend to be bankers.
Yeah, financiers.
Yeah.
Violet is, I was saying purple before, it's violet. Violet, yeah, they're artists.
Okay.
Golds are elites. Green are the programmers. I was thinking more hackers. Brown are assistants. Blue is pilot, like you said. Orange are engineers. Gray is security. Yellow are doctors. Let's see. What's obsidian?
Obsidians are
like
warriors.
Bounty hunter. They're like bounty hunters.
I think some of them might be in the book series.
Gray are. What was gray?
Gray are security.
Gray security. Copper's bureaucrat. Here we go. Obsidian assassin. Yeah, assassin.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So okay. So like for example, the assassin. Some of them like just upright kill characters, right? They
banish them.
They banish them. The assistants, the brown assistants, tend to move characters that are already on the board to different areas. So they're kind of, I don't know. It seemed to make sense. Pinker companions. That started to make things click a little bit more for me in terms of connecting a greater theme to this. Now, I can imagine that if I had read this, and I had been into this book, I think that would have probably risen or raised the game a half point or more. Just having that connection to it. As it is, I have no connection to this game. But I think it's a solid game. So what I was mentioning earlier is right after I dropped you off, I said, you know what? I bet you I can power through this book. I'll download it on Audible and I'll listen to it during the week. I've been, it's been pretty interesting as I've been playing more Warhammer. By the way, Alex, I'm working on a Tau Riptide right now. See that?
Whoa.
Yeah. This guy's a big beefy boy. But as I've been building models, painting models for Warhammer, I've been watching things on YouTube, but I've also been listening to audiobooks. And I tore through this last book really quickly. And so I'm like, I bet you I can get through Red Rising. And then I went to see how long it was. It was like 26 hours. And I was like, nope, not going to do that before Thursday. So and if anything, that kind of put me off. I did a little bit of reading on a Wikipedia page just to get a feel for it. And it didn't do a whole lot for me. Does that mean I won't read it at some point? I could, maybe. I won't say no. But I still think it's a solid enough game. So like you said, if you enjoy this world, if you've read this book series, there is more than enough of a game here that I think you'll enjoy this. And if you haven't read this, I think it's worth checking out because I think it's a very solid combo-y card game. It's probably not the best combo-y card game that I've played, but it's still really solid. And it's quick enough too. Like that's the nice thing. It's quick enough and there's enough variety. I mean, all of my plays were incredibly different, just incredibly different. And I foresee that happening for a while.
We didn't talk about this. Did you get a chance to try the solo mode?
I did not. Alex, we didn't talk about this either. Yeah, that's how we should start each statement. Alex, we didn't talk about this.
We didn't talk about this either, yeah. Left this part out. Oh, and this one.
So I had a half-day trial yesterday, and then today I started a day-and-a-half trial. The first half today, and then the full day tomorrow. It's been a crazy week, and I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. So, no. But I think, you know what? Dang it. You know what? I should do that. Because maybe that's I just don't know that I'm going to play it instead of Marvel Champions for a solo card game.
Okay.
But I should try it. I'm willing to try it.
All right. You gave a COVID caveat before, by the way. I have no such caveat. I haven't played it at the super high player counts. I also haven't played it at 2. It has worked pretty well at the 3 and 4 player counts I've played it at.
It's definitely more interesting at 3 than 2.
I could see that because the board state changes a little bit more, and this game doesn't rely on, but it's helped by more cards, more variety, more things coming out, and changing what's available.
And the dynamics of the competition for the Institute, the influence of the Institute, things like that. I think we're definitely more interesting at 3. I think this would be, I don't think this game is hurt by going to a 4-player count. I can't say that with as much confidence for 5. Did you play 5, did you say? Or just 4?
I might have played it once at 5. I haven't played it at 6.
What do you think it would be like at 5?
The turns are so fast for the most part. I think it would probably be okay.
Yeah.
And again, you get some nice variation in the boards. Some gamers might be frustrated by that. You lose enough control at higher player counts that I think there might be some frustration. It's hard to plan your turn in advance because the board state will have changed so much by the time it gets around to you. 3 is a nice blend. 4 is a nice blend because there's enough control over the board state, but enough new things coming in and out to change things up. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how 6 would be, but I can confidently say it plays just fine at 4 and 3. Those are sweet spot player counts for me. I can't attest to anything higher or lower.
Okay, fair enough.
The Guild did have one thought. Rob Pettit says, my wife and I were able to play Red Rising. Within 5 minutes, my wife was saying how much she liked it. The Collector's Edition components are just outstanding, which we've come to expect from Stonemaier. The gameplay reminded us of Arboretum, which is one of our favorite games. Managing your cards and deciding what to discard, which in this case is deploying, and what to keep for scoring was a fun challenge. There are times where you could keep a card to deny your opponent from getting it, even if it didn't necessarily fit into what you were doing at the moment. I've heard some people complain about the player powers being unbalanced, but it all comes down to how you manage your ability and fit it into your strategy for each game. If I know someone's power lets them get an easy benefit or bonus, I might deploy cards to make it a hindrance for them to use it. All in all, we both love the game and can't wait to play it more. It feels like a meatier version of Arboretum to us with abilities added to the cards and a few additional ways to score. I'd say early on, it's looking like a 6 to us.
Wow.
And for folks who don't know, we rate everything on here at the Dukes of Dice on a 6-point scale. 6 is the best score you can get.
You know, I didn't make that Arboretum comparison, but I think that's spot on. Yeah. And I love Arboretum, because it's the tension of, I have cards in my hand. I need to play them out in front of me to do various things, right? I need to play, and then in Red Rising, I need to play them out to get their deploy abilities. But then I need to retain certain cards because it's going to affect which cards I can actually score that I've played. And it's a great tension. Like, it's a fantastic tension. And so, I think that's spot on.
Yeah. Well, the game also will say, all right, you like your hand? Fine, take this turn. It's a less powerful turn, and you're adding options to the board for your opponents, but yeah, go for it. Do it if you want. But it also encourages you. There's some pretty powerful deploy effects that, sitting on those, maybe hoping you get it back, that can be a thing too. So, yeah, no, I think that's a fair comment. Sean, do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first for final thoughts?
Yeah, I'll go first. So like you said, we rate things here. Oh, so tired. Rate everything here on that 6-point scale. This is not going to be a 6 for me. And it's better than a 3. 3 is game is okay, not exciting. We'll play in the right situation. There's no way it's a 3 for me. So it's either going to be a 4 or 5. 5 is a great game. We'll rarely turn down a play of it. 4 is a good game, worth playing, just not all the time belongs in the duchy. And I think I'm going to settle at a 4. It's going to be a pretty high 4. Like, I this is really good. It's a really good game. I'm excited to play it some more. And I bet you if this were a book series that I really enjoyed, that the gameplay is good enough. That sounds condescending. The gameplay is solid. Don't get me wrong. But I think if I enjoyed the background, the theme, the story, this probably could get to a 5. But that kind of tells you the importance of those things. So yeah.
All right. What's interesting for me is this is, as we mentioned, kind of a takeoff on Fantasy Realms, and Stonemaier in its last game before this, Pendulum, went for innovation, that sort of that real-time element. This doesn't have that same factor when it comes to being an incredibly innovative game. But what it does in terms of the hand management, the different feels to the different games, all of that comes together in a really satisfying way, backed up by a really nice components production. I think I'll be able to play this one with Abby and enjoy it, but I also think I'll be able to play it with gamers and enjoy it. I think it fits a pretty wide crowd. As a fan of the book series, I think that helps my enjoyment of this as well. This is not, Scythe level. This isn't viticulture level, viticulture level for me, but it's still really good, and I have no problem settling in on a 5. My style of game for sure in terms of weight, plays cleanly, has a nice, simple, fun core mechanic to it. I don't know, does a lot of things right. It's not perfect as we talked about, but I've really enjoyed it, and certainly looking forward to getting more plays. And I anticipate I will have gotten more plays by the time we get to the double take come next year. Plus, it looks good on the shelf. So, haven't played with Abby. Excited to. A 5 from me. Again, as I stated at the top of the review, keep in mind all the caveats as they pertain to Stonemaier. But, yeah.
You're such a shill, man.
Probably true. It's fair. I think they do good stuff. In any case.
Well, then that doesn't make you a shill.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry.
I think you're oversensitive about this, but that's just me.
Fair. Could be. In any event, that's our review of Red Rising. A high 4 from Sean and a solid 5 from me.
And can I say something else, Alex?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
As you do our outro.
Yeah.
And I think the guild agrees with me. I think the guild was like, sure, yeah. Just let us know.
Oh, yeah, no, the guild is far more relaxed. I'm just used to that being in that journalist mindset where it's very much about trying not to appear biased, limiting conflicts of interest where you can, that sort of thing. So, it is games journalism in a sense, not that we're,
oh boy.
Sorry, that's getting a little too full of myself, maybe. I don't know. There's still those principles that I have behind it. So that's why I feel a little uncomfortable, but
all right.
Yeah. Anyway,
you do you.
Anyway, that's Red Rising, a 5 from me and a 4 from Sean. Ugh.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double Take.
All right, next up, the Duke's Double Take, looking back at episode 223, More Than the Summer Its Parts, where it was a review of Azul Summer Pavilion, but you weren't in on this one, Sean. This was an Abby and Alex special. This one I gave Azul Summer Pavilion a 5, said, less restricting than basic Azul, looks gorgeous on the table, and my favorite of the series. Abby said, yeah, just straight up a yeah, her favorite of the series as well. She rates things on a no to heck yeah scale. It didn't quite get a heck yeah. A few games do, but did get a yeah. Sean, have you played Azul Summer Pavilion?
Yeah, I played it once at Empire before lockdown, I believe, and I liked it, but I think I liked base and stained glass better.
Wow, interesting. So probably in the 4 range. 3-4 range?
I'd probably put it in the 3 range.
Ooh, okay.
Well, I mean, because I'd rather play the other 2.
The other 2 Azul. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And
okay.
So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I have played this since. Abby and I have both played this since. In fact, Abby has suggested this since.
Ooh.
Which is a pretty good sign for the game. She doesn't suggest a ton of games. Cribbage from time to time, Hanamakoji from time to time, and this one has been suggested. So, yeah, that's pretty high praise. I didn't get her, ask her to rescore it. It might have risen to a heck yeah. It might still be at a yeah. I'm not sure. But either way, it's certainly stayed in the collection, and it's certainly been one that we've both really, really enjoyed. So, yeah, for me, that thing's not going anywhere. It's staying right there at a 5, and it's at the very least a 5 equivalent for Abby. Guild had plenty of thoughts on this one, though. Rob Pettit also chiming in on this one. He said, for Azul, My wife and I go back and forth on whether Summer Pavilion or Sintra is our favorite version. I think Sintra would probably just edge out Summer Pavilion if I were picking today. We like the choices Summer Pavilion offers and how you can feel very clever when you chain things together. The only downside to Summer Pavilion is the game can take a little bit longer to play as the placement phase is drawn out due to bonuses you can earn. However, the bonuses can add a bit of strategic depth as you have to consider what is available and what your opponent may be wanting to do, possibly creating a game of cat and mouse. Of the three versions, I rank them Sintra, Summer Pavilion, and then the first Azul. Although if I played Summer Pavilion tonight, it may jump above Sintra. I'd say Summer Pavilion is a solid 5. It feels unique when compared to the first two, but still feels familiar at the same time.
And then Brett Mowers says, Azul, Summer Pavilion, has stuck in our collection for its interesting decisions, tense drafting, and as someone else mentioned, clever combos you can pull off. The pre-planning you can do by holding tiles between rounds is always a nice minigame of benefit now or score big later. We found this less mean than traditional Azul and just as easy to teach. This is a solid high 4 for us. Boom, that is it exactly that I didn't remember. It's less mean. That's why I think I prefer.
Not mean enough for Sean.
Not mean enough for me. So thanks, Brett, for that reminder.
Yep. Paul Naxer said, when I read Summer Pavilion's description, I was quite excited. The abilities of getting wild tiles and working out combos on your player board are wonderful. That added complexity comes at a small cost to me, at least. While it's not difficult to read your opponent's board, it's easy to get lost in your own head game compared to base Azul. Thankfully, we have love and room in the collection for both. We'll rarely turn down a play.
All right.
And then I think there was one other one which BJ basically said in one sentence that it was the best of the three in his mind. So I don't know, different thoughts as to where it fits, but I think most people tend to agree it's at least a worthy Azul. So there you go.
Sure.
That is our review or double take. Man, I am way off tonight too. Azul Summer Pavilion stays at a 5 for me and probably at a 5 for Abby, though maybe higher. Before we wrap things up, though, Sean, the best of the rest of the names we didn't quite pick, and we'll get to them, but we had a couple of one-word name entrants that had a shot. Didn't pick any of them, but a couple that are definitely in the mix here. First one is not that, though. Joshi and Gurr with Red versus Blue, referencing the blue in Azul, and, of course, the red in Red Rising, and the Halo-inspired series. Yeah.
I was wondering if you were going to get there, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's the core of it. That one was a solid pick. Didn't end up being the winner, but a solid name.
And then Baker Mitchell suggested purple. Just purple. Why? Red, Rising, and Azul. What do you get? Red and blue? You get purple. I love it. And there was a part of me that liked it a lot, like wanted it to be the pick. I feel like that's the closest one name that I've gotten to. And there was just something, it's almost like it needed another word or something. I don't know.
See, I was out and out going to pick the next one here from Jonas Resting Jeppesen, Sunrise, which I thought was super cool. You know, summer, it's the season of the most sun, and Rising. You did not buy it, Sean. You were not a fan of this suggestion at all.
Look, I get it. I get it that in your hemisphere, you have the most sun during the summer season. But for I guess wait a minute.
It's every hemisphere. Yeah.
But a pavilion protects you from the sun.
Yeah.
Oh, whoopsie. I stand by the choice we made. It's fine.
All right. So anyway, that's Jonas with Sunrise. Nice one-word title.
And then BJ suggested At Yeast, it's a cruel, cruel summer. And I don't know at Yeast, it's
Yeast
a cruel,
is
cruel
rising.
Summer.
Rising bread was what he was getting at.
Okay. So that's
it's
not a reference.
It's a pretty obscure one.
That's not a reference to anything, right? Like that's not a quote from a song or...
I know Cruel, Cruel Summer's a song, Bananarama. Anyway.
I'm gonna look that up. At least it's a cruel... Oh, yeah.
Is that from that song?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you sing it?
It's a cruel, cruel, cruel summer. All right, that's about all I got. Anyway, I got another song coming up. I had to prepare for that one, Sean. But yeah, good job, BJ, with your weird name.
Or is it? Wait. There's a Taylor Swift song called "Cruel Summer."
I don't think that's what he was referring to, knowing PJ.
What? Well, why are you trying to pigeonhole him? Why can't he like Taylor Swift?
Not that he can't like. I'm just saying he probably was not referring to that.
Based on what, right. Alex?
Just based on life. Finally, Brett Mowers with Red Tile Rising, referencing is it CCR? Yeah, it's CCR. It's not just John Cougar Mellencamp on his own, but I'm going to do my best with this.
John Cougar Mellencamp?
Was he part of CCR?
Good Lord, no.
Creedence Clearwater Revival?
No.
No? Who am I thinking of? Who went solo from that group?
Neil Young.
Now I'm going to look this up.
Well, that was CCR. CCRY.
Oh, I was thinking of John Fogerty. Whoops. Whoops. That's not particularly close at all. Anyway, the lyrics as Brett spelled them out. I don't know if I feel like singing tonight. This is not going to go well. Oh, yeah, he wrote out such nice lyrics.
Come on, Alex.
I see a red tile rising. I see my opponent on their way.
Hold on. I need you to stop. Look, he put the lyrics in here. We're going to take a break. We're going to go listen to the song on YouTube.
I've heard this song before, I swear.
I don't believe you.
I have. I've heard it before. Just not in a while. And this is not a good singing night. Hang on. All right. I'm listening to it now.
And while you're listening to that, I'm looking up the lyrics for Cruel Summer by Bananarama. And it's a cruel, cruel summer, but there's no at least it's a cruel, cruel summer. So it's fine. All right. You got it?
I think I have it enough. So we're going to try it again. I see a red tile rising. I see my opponent on their way. I see them taking my next tile. I see that combo you just played. Jamie, don't be mad tonight if this review don't go right. There's a red tile on the rise.
Much better. Much better.
Yeah, I needed that.
Much better.
Yeah, still pretty rough. Anyway, I'm so unbelievably embarrassed. We have to just end. I'm out.
All right, that's a good place to end it. I got halfway through my towel riptide. Look here, Alex. I got legs. I got legs and a little cod piece there. A little robot cod piece.
Okay.
Anyway, he's not a robot. There's a dude inside that pilots it. Okay, well, that's going to do it then for episode 249. Thanks again to the Name Father for naming it Rank and Tile. Until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And Duke you later, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on April 22nd, 2021. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all days in the Duchy, go to DukesofDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations in our Board Gaming Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsor, Game Toppers LLC. You can learn more about all the Game Toppers at GameToppersLLC.com. That's going to do it for now. Until next week. Wait. Game on!